Hey guys, welcome back to the Top 10 Weakest series. You guys kept up the trends, pulling out the dominant typing over the previous one. We went from the surprisingly solid fighting type into one of the best typings of all time, the psychic type. I will say, in comparison to the fighting types, it's a bit easier to nail down bad psychic types since there are so many good ones that you can really tell where the cutoff point is just by looking. I feel that after looking over the whole typing, I've got a pretty good list put together here, but the placings I feel will leave us with a lot of conversation in the comments. Speaking of the comments, by the way, I'd just like to address something. These are of course my opinion, but I'm also looking at them from a competitive standpoint only. I've seen a lot of comments lately talking about how good a Pokemon was for you in a playthrough, and that means they don't belong on these lists. But again, we're looking at these from the competitive side, not in-game. Oh, and by the way, today over on MysticSage, we have yet another My Hero Academia review going up. Not long after this video goes live, you can go check out my thoughts on the continued battle between Class A and 1B, as we're now just about ready to see Deku take the stage. Alright, enough of that though. Ready your mind as we dive deep into the 10 worst psychic types. We're gonna open things up today with a Pokemon that quite often serves as a lead on some teams, Meowstic. Now, I know how weird it is to imply a Pokemon is often used for anything while also appearing on this list, but I'd say you'll see a lot of it if you're playing in one of the bottom tiers of Pokemon, like Piu or something like that. It's Meowstic, and a big reason why it gets used so much is thanks to its ability. It has Prankster, and with that ability, for those who don't know, status moves can first hit due to a gain in priority. So Meowstic can use Thunder Wave right off the bat, or one of the screen moves to help your Pokemon take hits better. When it comes to utility, it definitely does a decent job, but what leaves it outclassed by other Pokemon that have Prankster is the fact that it can't take hits super well. It's got 81 base special defense and 76 base defense, and yeah, thankfully for it, there's a base 114 speed, which helps back up that Prankster ability. I wouldn't recommend looking at Meowstic as a Pokemon that is going to do much offensively for you. There's giving it Fake Out, which adds on to its usage as a lead, though really, that isn't amazing or anything. Take a look at the stats. Its attack is awful at base 48, so you're much better off using special attacking moves instead. There's a lot of good moves depending on the gender your Meowstic is, ranging from Shadow Ball, to Psyshock, to Thunderbolt. And you can even set up using Nasty Plot. Though, like I said, I wouldn't bother looking at Meowstic for its offensive properties. It's strictly, to me, a utility Pokemon. It's also the best we're talking about today, which should really say something.
Uh-oh, Stinky. Uh-oh, Stinky. Uh-oh, Stinky.
Uh-oh, Stinky!
You saw the thumbnail, and you know the meme. So it's time for Ringaru. No, not the anime of a similar name, but the Pokemon. This is yet another Pokemon that I learned more about through researching during this series. And it was a bit interesting. Its counterpart Passimian was in this same spot on the fighting list in the last entry. And I've gotta say, Passimian is better. Let's start off with the weird typing on this monkey. I mean, normal psychic? Really? I guess now it won't be hurt by ghost types, which is cool, but Bug and Dark is still out there, and there is now only one resistance for this thing, and it's to other psychic types. Its typing is detrimental to its success, though its defenses are a little helpful. Base 110 special and 80 physical with 90 base HP. It is capable of taking a hit or two, so it has that going for it. As an attacker, I mean, 90 special attack is definitely usable. I don't hate it. That ability though, it's not useful in anything other than doubles, but it can be an interesting circumstantial ability to bring into the fold. Here's the big problem. It has some bad speed, base 60, which of course can really be helped by Trick Room, which you guys incessantly remind me of. Look, I get it. It can be really useful on actual good Pokemon, and I too would love to have a Pokemon be decent for only 5 turns most of the time. But hey, you do you. When it attacks, it turns to moves like Psychic, Energy Ball, and Thunderbolt to do some damage. And of course, it can set up with Calm Mind and Nasty Plot. As an attacker, Ringaru really isn't that bad. And with Trick Room, it can get in its moves faster than other Pokemon. But that also relies on setting up and getting that Trick Room coming, which rarely will be an easy feat. It's one of the worst Psychic types, but I've knocked it enough. We move on to number 8, and we've got an OG Kanto option for all those kids who didn't have a friend to trade with, Hypno. I mean, guys, let's get this out of the way right off the bat. Would you ever trust a Pokemon with a nose like this? I know I wouldn't. In a quick look at some of its Pokedex entries, call it a dangerous Pokemon, and one prone to kidnapping children. That's pretty horrifying, though some of its edge is taken off when you realize it's one of the worst Psychic-type Pokemon out there. It's got 115 base special defense, which is by and large its best stat, and what it's known for. However, its physical defense is a meager base 70, and that HP is somewhere in the middle at base 85. So really, it isn't even super bulky, even if it can take a special hit relatively well. When you look at the abilities, you'll see Insomnia, Forewarn, and Inner Focus, which are not all the most exciting abilities. Insomnia and Inner Focus prevent sleep and flinching from happening. And I guess in a way, you could say Forewarn can prevent Hypno from taking a super effective hit in a way. Though regardless, none of those are all that great to me, so we can write off abilities as something to get excited over. Base 73 in both attacks, and that's speed at base 67. Doesn't exactly lend itself to being efficient as an attacker. Now I will say, there is the idea of running Belly Drum on this thing, which might sound a bit bizarre to those of you who don't have a finger on the pulse of the Hypno metagame. But it was definitely a thing in the 7th gen. You can use Hypnosis to put a Pokemon to sleep and slap on that Belly Drum. I don't really know why you'd bother, since you know you're gonna get outsped often, but whatever, you do you. So like, yeah. Physical and special moves like Drain Punch, Zen Headbutt, and Psychic are all options, but I'm writing off Hypno as a useless Pokemon. That doesn't spell well for the rest of the list, since this is only number 8. So yeah, it's gonna get rougher. Here at number 7, we have the absolutely foul, smelly, no-good swine, Grumpig. Look, I'm not saying I hate Grumpig by any means, but I do like it about as much as I like Pignite, which is not very much at all. I fucking hate Grumpig. Okay, I'm just kidding. Grumpig stands in the comments, put down your pitchforks. It's not that bad of a Pokemon. However, I wouldn't really want to use this thing by any means. Let's take a look at those stats. 80 in both HP and speed, 45 in attack, 65 in defense, 90 in special attack, and finally 110 in special defense. Now the special attack, special defense, and speed don't seem too horrible at first glance. 90 is decent attacking power, 110 is wonderful on the defensive side of things, and 80 speed is somewhat serviceable, but it really gets hurt when it comes to that HP and defense. 80 HP isn't the worst in the world, but you would certainly want to ask for a bit more when dealing with such abysmal defense. When your weaknesses are Bug, Dark, and Ghost, all three of which have some of the best competitive physical moves in the entire series, you're not really in good shape with mediocre bulk like that. So what else does it have under its belt? Abilities wise, nothing really useful. Gluttony, Own Tempo, and Thick Fat. Gluttony could maybe save your hide if you're not O-code, but you'd have to be up against something even weaker than this thing, so that's useless. Own Tempo just makes it so it can't be confused, which I think most people again will just be trying for that OHKO instead of wasting time confusing it. Then there's Thick Fat. Sure, it's now resistance to ice and fire, but again, people will probably just use powerful stab moves against Grumpig, so I don't really think that matters in the end. Now it does have a pretty decent move pool with strong Psychic type moves, and some decent coverage that take on all the types it's weak against, like Power Gem, Signal Beam, and Shadow Ball. So it's not totally helpless when everything is said and done. However, just because it's not useless doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve to be on the list. Let's kick off this upcoming top 5 with a companion piece. This entry and the next will go hand in hand with one another. Now, if you recall in the past, I was open to including 2 or once even 3 Pokemon together for one entry, if they were similar. But today, I'm separating Lunatone and Solrock in the different entries. But I'm going to be talking about Lunatone first, as I believe it's a little better than Solrock. The reason why I believe that? It would have to be because I see more worth in a Pokemon like this when they're a special attacker. Fundamentally, they're the same Pokemon in a way with different stat allocation. But when you look at the move pool Lunatone has, it looks pretty damn good. It's got Moonblast, Psychic, and Power Gem, which is a nice set of special moves. And if you wanted to, you could even run a Stored Power Combine set, which could work out very well. That 95 base special attack shouldn't be slept on, and I will say that its base 70 speed is a lot better than it could be, although it still isn't good. Now, where it suffers is in its defenses. I won't lie, Levitate is a great ability on Lunatone, but it isn't enough to really improve things defensively to make Lunatone an actually good Pokemon. I mean, base 85 special and 65 physical, you're not gonna take many water or dark hits too well, that's for sure. Its speed can be improved from Rock Polish, and of course with Combine, that special defense will go up. But needing to take turns, the setup leaves Lunatone open to being attacked. And for a Rock type, it just can't take them well. You'd never use it in higher tier play, and at the bottom tiers, there's too many checks for it unfortunately. So, like I said, up next is Solrock. It's really a bit worse than Lunatone because of its physical attack. It just isn't set up for success at all, being a physical attacker. Its stat layout naturally is a mere opposite of Lunatone, having 95 in attack and 80 in defense. You would think, with access to moves like Stone Edge and Zen Headbutt, that this thing might be even better than Lunatone. But alas, that is not the case. I actually don't have a lot to say about Solrock that I didn't just say about Lunatone. But I guess extra things to bring up is that Solrock has access to Swords Dance and also Rock Polish. So it can set up, but again, I don't see it taking the necessary hits to set up properly. There really just isn't anything else to say, so I'll keep this one short. The Sun and Moon are just no good, and I wouldn't be too surprised to see them appear on the Rock type list as well. Now that we're no longer up in space dealing with planets, let's bring it back down to Earth with the long neck Pokemon, Girafarig. Real quick, have you guys ever wondered how it feels for a giraffe to throw up? I think that would be pretty awful, though perhaps not as awful as being a palindrome. Girafarig's name is the same whether you read it forward or backward. And that would arguably be the most interesting thing about it. Its stats are not nice, with 90 base special attack being its best. The 85 speed at least is somewhat decent, but yeah, look at the rest of the stats. They're not very good. Its Inner Focus and Early Bird abilities are useless for the most part, but that hidden ability Sap Sipper might just be the best thing about Girafarig. It'll get its attack boosted by a stage when it gets hit by a grass type move, making it a possible threat to grass Pokemon. Just like with the Ringaru, its typing hinders it majorly, and the pedestrian stats aren't cool. I will say though, the thing that keeps Girafarig here above the top 3 is its coverage options. Naturally for stab, it can use Return for good damage, and it has Work Up and Calm Mind, which it can use for setup. Then for coverage, Dazzling Gleam leads a pool that includes the stab Psychic, Thunderbolt, and Energy Ball. And don't forget physical options like Earthquake if you're choosing to play that way. So yeah, its moves are alright, but the stats backing up those moves are just not good enough for me. Girafarig isn't a good Pokemon, despite being serviceable in a playthrough. And maybe if it evolved one day, it would be a little better. Alright, let's keep making things worse. And it is in fact a bit of a cop-out, just like it was the last 2 times. Okay, I still don't really think it is, but I know that might be what crosses your mind when I let you know that it is Oricorio using the Pa'u style. The fact is this, Oricorio needs to be ranked here because this psychic form is just as awful as any normal psychic type, no doubt. It isn't like it's some special form that Oricorio transforms into during battle. It's something that is entering and exiting one. I will say, this is definitely not the worst of the Oricorio forms, though it's still pretty damn bad. It's awful defensively, just like most of the other forms, and it can barely do anything offensively with just one psychic type move, being Revelation Dance. It's the signature move on Oricorio, and it matches the typing that it is. But boy, is it just unable to do anything. Hurricane is a great move, and Revelation Dance at least is base 90 power, so it gets stab boosted to 135, making it somewhat strong. All of that just doesn't matter though, as beyond the base 98 special attack and 93 speed, Oricorio has garbage bulk, and it'll get pretty hurt when switching in on Stealth Rocks. I don't have anything else to say other than its ability sucks, its good stats are useless, its move pool is garbage, and it is definitely one of the worst psychic types. Okay, penultimate time. And I know a lot of you were expecting to see this Pokemon, and have been waiting patiently for it. So, here it is. Yeah, that's right. The second worst psychic type is Trimeco, and my goodness, is it so lucky. There was of course a much worse psychic type that we'll get to momentarily. But this thing is hot garbage. It has 95 special attack and some decent defenses, but its HP stat is definitely not complimentary. Its speed stat isn't good either. What is this thing ever going to try and outspeed? It won't go well for it, I can assure you of that. Its ability is Levitate, which we've talked about a few times already. But okay, you're not affected by Earthquake. That's nice, a strong move doesn't hurt your Trimeco. Okay, cool. It's a bad Pokemon anyway, and its defenses don't mean much. It has no interesting moves in its pool outside of the usual Psychic or a coverage move like Energy Ball or Dazzling Gleam. I don't have much more to say about Trimeco. Its badness is so boring and so self-explanatory that you can just look at it and understand that it's one of the worst Pokemon of its typing. I've got my eyes on you, Trimeco. Stop trying to sabotage my videos by having so little to talk about. Alright, final spot on this list. The number 1 slot, it's unknown. It's got access to one move, that's Hidden Power. And its stats are 72 in its attacks and 48 in everything else. That's the definition of bad. And I'm making the claim now that Unknown is the absolute worst Pokemon we will ever go over on one of these lists. There are 28 different shapes of this thing to look at and be completely unimpressed by. There's nothing else to say, which at the very least means I don't have to be borderline angry by how bad this thing is any longer. Alright, that is going to do it for this one. We really blazed through that top 5. But I mean, come on. When you're dealing with a terrible Pokemon, you're bound to not have a lot to talk about. Unknown was practically a joke, but no, it was a real entry, and it truly is the worst Pokemon we're probably ever going to talk about. This was relatively easy to put together though, but I hope the next one at least has more to talk about. Speaking of something to talk about, I think I just saw a mysterious figure standing behind you guys. Probably just my eyes playing some tricks. Let me know what typing you'd like to see me cover next in this series, and I'll see you then. So with that said, thank you to everyone for watching the video. Huge thanks to my phenomenal team and the amazing art done each week by Danny the Demon. I couldn't do all this without them. If you all enjoyed the video and want to see more content like this, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Be sure to leave a comment too, as it really helps us out. I also do other content on my Twitch, where I stream Genshin Impact, Mystic Zora, where I do Pokemon Let's Plays and other gaming content, and of course MysticSage, where I do all anime content. Right now, I'm focusing on Inuyasha and Yashahime, so if you're interested in that, be sure to check it out. If you'd like to support me even further than that, check out my Patreon. Whether it's a $1 tip to get early thumbnail access, or the $10 tier to get cool perler bead charms and a shout out. There's tons of reasons to join today. These lovely people did, and I thank them all so much for their support. It really means the world to me. I think I'm gonna wrap this up though. I'm Mr. Gumbrion, and I will see you all next time with some more amazing Pokemon content.